Today I have an urgent message for you, and just as important, a request for you, my audience. For those of you who actually know what is going on around you, and I would like to think that that is all of you, you will know what is going on in Groblersdal for the last month or so. I'm not going to comment on the original case of Pieter Groenewald and Stefan Greef because I simply don't know enough about it. I don't have any first-hand details of the case except for the charges laid against them. What I would like to talk to you about today is what happened since then in Groblersdal. As you all should know, during the trial of the original two, a protest was held by the Bittereinders. During that protest, a fairly minor scuffle broke out and Francois van der Merwe of the Bittereinders was arrested and is still in custody today. As a consequence of that event, Devon Hofmeyer, the leader of the Bittereinders, Tewie Wessels, Willem Petzer, a well-known YouTuber and Facebook commentator, were asked to hand themselves in this morning to be arrested as well. Now, as I said, I know very little about the original case, but I have seen probably every single piece of video and photographic evidence of what happened the day that Francois was arrested. I would say that the charges against him are a stretch at best, but nevertheless, he has been in custody for 22 days now, if I'm not mistaken. Every bail hearing gets postponed for the stupidest of reasons, but that is the reality of the situation. And now, we have the other three arrested and in custody for, I believe, charges of inciting violence, disobeying the orders of a police officer, as well as attending an illegal gathering or protest. This is what I've heard. I could be mistaken. There could also be other charges I wouldn't know. People, I'm not going to go into what I think of these charges really. I think we can all see what is going on here. In my humble opinion, this case is going to be dragged out for as long as possible to drive home a very specific message, and that message is, us whites need to know our place, and if we step over that line, this is what is going to happen to you. It is nothing but a fear-mongering exercise. I said a while ago in one of the WhatsApp groups I am in, that as hard as it is to accept, these things will happen. In fact, they need to happen to wake the rest of us up. They will happen more and more frequently from now on. You see, this is, in my opinion, the beginning of the final onslaught on the whites in South Africa. You can go and look at other African countries like Kenya, Angola, and Zimbabwe, to name a few. The exact same thing happened there, and we all know what happened after that, right? All I'm going to say is that in all those cases, and many more, blood was spilled. A lot of blood. My question today is, are you ready for what is coming after this phase is over? I can already hear many saying that they are safe in their security complexes or behind their high walls, electric fences and alarm systems. If that is your opinion, you have clearly got your head planted firmly up your ignorant arse. The only advice to you is to go and do some research before you break out another beer at the braai and laugh at the rest of us. Don't say you weren't warned. There is another grouping of people who are almost just as ignorant in my eyes, and that is the group who think that they can take on the world with their 308 rifles and a Bible under the arm. I'm afraid I have never read or heard of it being mentioned anywhere in the Bible that stupidity is rewarded. I'm not saying that winning such a fight is impossible, but I'm asking you if you are willing to pay the price that will be demanded of us. There will be more blood spilled than even the most ignorant among you can imagine. It is unfortunate, but the world is filled with stupidity and ignorance, which is in most cases a deadly combination. So what other solution or solutions are there for us? I know that in my last recording I spoke about voting in the elections for either a party yet to be formed that stands and fights for us or our interests and our freedom. Even though I do recommend that we all do vote, I have very little faith that any political party can save this country from where we are heading. Things have just gone too far now. The government is bankrupt, the tax-paying population is tapped out. In general, the only people who have money are the corrupt. I say in general because I know there are still some people who earn good money doing honest work, but even they are getting fewer and fewer every day. Even though I say this, I still recommend that people go to the polls and place your cross. Remember, a vote for any other party is a vote against the worst government this country has probably ever seen, the ANC. You know how I feel about the WHO loving, WEF loving, UN loving, LGBTQ+++ supporting, 15 minutes smart city supporting DA. I'm not going to go into that again, other than to say that they are nothing other than a Judas goat leading us to the slaughter. If you don't know what a Judas goat is, I suggest you look it up fast. Don't be fooled by a pothole-free street and a mowed sidewalk. They are not what they seem. So here I get to my solution for what is happening, and specifically what in my opinion is still going to happen here. As much as I think that legally speaking the Boere people are 100% entitled to their own volksstaat, as promised in the Afrikaner Accord, which, as I said, was agreed to by the ANC, the National Party, as well as the Freedom Front before the elections in 1994. It is now 30 years later, and even if the court case between Tabok and the government is won, I simply can't imagine how the volksstaat, as it was envisaged 30 years ago, can now be implemented with the population growth this country has had in the last 30 years. It is simply not possible to deport or move millions of people out of this area in order for the Boere to have their volksstaat, which I actually do agree they are legally entitled to. Where would they be moved to? I'm sorry, but a volksstaat, as envisaged 30 years ago, in the area envisaged 30 years ago, just can't happen. In my opinion, of course. The only solution that actually does make sense to me is secession of the Cape. For clarity, I am not talking about Cape Town. I am talking about the entire Old Cape Province, as the ULA and now the UCS are promoting. This, in my opinion, is the only feasible plan I have ever come across. The rest are just pipe dreams of naive or stubborn people, in my opinion. Let us look at what the ULA/UCS is suggesting. More than 10 years ago, Heinmark started a process that conforms to international law to secede the Cape. He did this 100% in compliance with international law and has in fact completed the legal process. All that is needed for this process to be implemented legally is the mandate of the people concerned. Hein has calculated that approximately 2 million mandates are needed to make the process undoubtedly and unquestionably the will of the people. After that, there is no need to ask the government for permission to secede. There is no need to ask the international community for permission to secede. We simply do it. It is legal and it is totally feasible. If you want to know just how feasible it is, I urge you to go to the website of the UCS or United Cape States and find their feasibility study document. After reading it, you will be left with very little doubt as to the feasibility of secession of the Cape. I have heard and argued with many people about this, most of which live outside of the proposed secession area and will not support secession for the simple reason that their farm or property does not fall into the secession area. This, in my opinion, has to be the most selfish and ignorant attitude I've ever seen. Let's look at a real-life scenario. Let's say Jan lives in Eastern Free State on his farm somewhere, and his farm is well outside of the proposed secession area. Jan can still give his mandate for secession and carry on living in South Africa if he wants. Nothing will change for him. Yet, if the need arises at any time in the future for him to leave his farm in fear of his life, he will have a home in the new seceded country. There are many foreigners living in South Africa who own property here. Just as these people own property in South Africa, so can Jan. Why is it that so many people are so short-sighted that they only see their own needs and not the needs of even their children and grandchildren? If you think I am referring to the older generation, you would be 100% correct. This attitude is almost exclusively shown by the older people who are, for the most part, as stubborn as mules. I'm sorry, but that's the truth from my experience promoting secession. To this day, I have not seen or heard of another plan for our freedom or safety that even comes close to how well and how thorough the ULA prepared their proposal. Yet, there is probably one new movement that pops up every month with some pipe dream of obtaining the volksstaat they were promised 30 years ago. What these people fail to realize is that the fact that their plans will take years to put together and implement, and in my opinion, once again, we don't have the luxury of time. We are facing a huge possibility of unbridled chaos and bloodshed in the face, and yet the stubborn ones among us will deny the rest of us a shot at a free, a fair, and a safe existence. In other words, they want their bread buttered on both sides, and they want somebody else to bake that bread for them too. Come on, people. Yes, go to the polls just in case I am wrong, but have a plan B that is well thought out, well prepared, legal, and most importantly, can be implemented tomorrow, provided those mandates are collected. In other words, if you want a future for your children and their children, you owe it to them to give your mandate right now. Forget what you need. We are well past our sell-by date, and I count myself in that too. We need to start thinking of the younger generations and the future of our people. This brings me to my urgent request. As I told you earlier, Willem Petzer, Tewie Wessels, and Devon Hofmeyer were arrested today. Their defense costs are going to be substantial, to say the least, and I think we owe it to them to help them as much as possible where we can. Both Willem and Tewie have posted the banking details of the attorney or advocate's trust account. I could be mistaken, but I think they both have the same attorney. I'm going to repost it in the description of this recording and in a pinned comment. If any of the others also set up a donation account, I will post them too. I am making a plea to everyone who listens to this recording to make a donation towards their defense costs. There is no donation too small or too big. Any and all donations will be received with equal appreciation and thanks. I thank you for listening this far, and thank everyone who does make a donation to the legal costs of these individuals. Please give me a like, give me a share, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. You've got absolutely nothing to lose. Until next time, be safe out there.